All right, so everything looks good. So basically, wanted to put out a video tonight. It's pretty late, but want to try and crank out a video every few days. I think it's been I don't even know how long it's been since I put in a video, but it's been a few days, 5 or 6 days. So a couple things. One thing is this debt ceiling thing. Now, I don't know how people can be so easily taken by the fear mongering that the media and the government puts out. And this is a good example of how the media and the government really kind of work together. It's a sort of a relationship of mutually beneficial relationship. So people like Jerome Powell or I think Janet Yellen is the culprit too, the main culprit. Go out and do all of this fear mongering over the debt ceiling. And the media runs these stories about the debt ceiling. Okay. Now, I pulled up a few articles, and I did this the other day. I pulled up like 10 articles going back to 2010, one from each year. Uh, Debt ceiling crisis 2017. Profound consequences if no solution found. What is this? I don't know. Lombardi letter. I don't know. But you'll find these if you do some searching on Google, and by this point they might have tried to purge some of the older articles out to make the current current so-called crisis seem more of a crisis. Because Google does stuff like that. They demote content that they, whatever, whoever the overlords and in Alphabet are that do that. You gotta understand these are very powerful people, and they're going to do favors for other very powerful people because all powerful people like to do favors for each other. There's kind of a thing there. So, debt ceiling crisis 2017. Okay. What was the next one? That was for the next subject. That's for the next subject. Uh, Here goes 2019. The budget deal, the whatever, the debt. See, here is CNBC in 2019. The debt deal moves the U.S. closer to dodging the threat of debt default. Okay, and I would hope that at least people can harken back to 2 years ago, but now these days I'm not so sure. It seems like people have like 2 month or 1 month attention spans. Really, it's like getting to be like a 24-hour attention span because of the 24-hour news cycle. Nobody cares about history anymore. That's why I try to talk about history a lot because I am a history buff. I am formally educated in history. Uh, and by the way, when you're formally educated in history, I do not in the least regret. I just used my GI Bill anyway, so I do not in the least regret going back to school to study history. What you learn, one of the most important things you learn is how to think about history and how to research history and how to distinguish primary sources from secondary sources and why and the pitfalls of certain primary, trying to judge sources, critically think about sources. Here's a letter from a Confederate soldier in the Civil War, so therefore he might be a little bit biased towards the Confederacy. So as we read his letter about what's going on, we have to take that into account. There's no absolutes in history. Okay, just because Burns said something about the Civil War, say at a certain battle like Gettysburg, doesn't make it automatically true. That's what he can gather from his research. Okay, and I'm sure he did really good research, but it's possible that he was wrong because no one knows what actually happened in a historical context in any with any historical event unless they were there. Okay, but we were here for this, so we should understand what's going on. Uh, that every year you can search through. There's a couple years where there's maybe like a couple 2 years out of the last 10 to 15 years where you can't find fear mongering articles about the debt ceiling. And most of us should remember at least 2019 and 2017 and how they were talking about the debt ceiling. And they do this every year. The media plays along. It starts with the well, it's really in tandem. So the politicians fearmonger over the debt ceiling because that's a way for them, in my opinion, to get the spending through Congress easier. Okay, because they create this crisis, this debt ceiling crisis, and then they're like, "Oh, we're gonna shut the government down. We're gonna shut the government down," and then everybody's like sweating. Which I think it would be great if we shut the government down. I think it would be nice if we shut most of the government down, the federal government, that is, permanently. Okay, I would not feel the least bit bad. I would feel bad for the people, the regular government workers. Sure, I would feel bad for them, but I mean, let's be honest. 50% of them are corrupt and deserve to be unemployed anyways. The other 50%, I'd feel bad for them, but it'd be great if they just shut the government down. It wouldn't affect my life, your life. Okay, if people are starting to miss, if there's old people that aren't getting Social Security payments, I'm sure their families would step in, and everything would balance itself out. We can do without, I would say, 90% of the government, of the federal government. It doesn't do anything good for. It's a whole big scam. But anyway, that's besides the point. So they do this debt ceiling, fear mongering, and that way they can like wait up until the last minute, and they can then in the middle of the night they strike a deal, and everybody's like, "Ooh, good." And then also at around the same time, like is happening this time, they pass the budget, and everybody does. Nobody cares what's in the budget at that point. Nobody even gives a shit because they were so scared over the debt ceiling. The budget goes through, and a lot of people who are friends of politicians and all these cronies, they get richer as a result. And that's the bottom line. I mean, if you look at these spending bills, they're just so outrageous. It's such in your face corruption. Okay, so I should have pulled up. I should have pulled up a summary. Maybe I'll do that sometime. Pull up a summary of this budget bill, go through it. But I had another summary of a different bill I wanted to go through. Okay, so then I see this story, which was this story, drug pricing bill. It was introduced into the House and Senate. So I'm like, oh, really? Drug pricing bill. So Congress wants to lower drug pricing and make pharmaceuticals cheaper. I doubt it. So I was, where I'm coming from with this is that, you know, I always think about the time when I think it was George H.W. Bush. He made it. I guess people were up there, up north in Wisconsin, places like that, Michigan, Ohio, wherever. They were going across the border into Canada and getting generic drugs at a huge discount compared to what they would pay in the United States. And I think Medicaid was paying for it, and President Bush stopped that with a lot of support from Congress. Now, a lot of the politicians said they were aghast at the move, but I'm sure if it came down to their votes, so how they do things in Congress a lot of times, I've noticed this, is they'll be there's going to be a bill. It's politically unpalatable for a lot of people. These Congress people don't want to vote for it, but at the same time they have to vote for it. So what happens is there's always a few fall guys within the House or Senate, and they're going to be the ones that are going to say like, I am voting against this bill. I am stopping this bill. And then you have everybody else who might have had to take that position, then they can just breathe a sigh of relief and vote yes, knowing that the bill will not get through. So that's kind of what's happening here lately with Joe Manchin. So Joe Manchin is blocking a lot of stuff. Kirsten Sinema is blocking a lot of stuff. Now they do come from more conservative districts, but there are other people within Congress that would take the no position. But because Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin are doing it, okay, then everybody else is like, good. I don't have to. I don't have to block this bill. I don't have to take that fucking heat. Okay, I can just pretend like I like this bill, vote yes, knowing that it's not going to go through. So this, we'll see how this goes. This goes out. But one thing that we have to remember is that if Congress really wanted to lower prescription drug prices, they could do it tomorrow, okay? And everybody knows they could do it tomorrow. But they are beholden to the pharmaceutical companies, and everybody knows it. They've been talking about lowering drug prices ever since I was a kid, okay? Because I actually used to watch the news and pay attention when I was a kid. And I remember this. It's always been an issue. Nothing ever gets done. Okay, so why is that? It's because too many of them are paid off by the pharmaceutical companies. Period, point blank. Okay, everybody knows it, but that's besides the point. So, this is like the summary for this new bill. Okay, and I'm looking through it, and there's there's stuff in here. The one thing that's in here that's kind of good is transparency measures. So little measures that little rules that require the the pharmaceutical companies to submit reports to the government, which would uh, explain why their drugs cost what they cost, and explain why they have to raise the prices of drugs every year. They raise the prices of most of their drugs, a lot of their drugs by 10% or more. It's like literally 10% a year they're raising drug prices. So they're saying, okay, you guys are going to have to submit a report to us and tell us why you're doing that. I mean, that's okay. They've been fighting that transparency stuff. So that's in here somewhere. I'm sure that won't make it to the final version of the bill. Here we go. This is a really good one. I'm looking at this bill, a lot of government spending. A lot of this is this provision provides for the biggest modernization of Medicare Part D benefits since its package. That's all this is stuff. This is example of expanding government here. This section, let's see. This provision would provide the this provision would require the General Accounting Office to investigate potential and existing state Medicaid program DUR board. This is more expanding government. So in this bill, there's a lot of uh, expansion of government. Okay, uh, this is very vague. So here's going to the transparency issue. So this provision improves transparency and prevents the use of abusive spread pricing and related practices in Medicaid. So I'm not sure if that goes to what I was talking to earlier, but there's that in here. Uh, you know, Here's one FDA. This provision is aimed at agreements that prevent generics and biosimilars from coming into market. Now, this is interesting. Um, one of one of the biggest reasons why we have such high drug prices is that the drug companies abuse the patent law, of the United States in order to keep drug prices high. I think I explained this, touched on this in the last video. So what they'll do is, when a patent is about to expire, they'll change the name of a drug, or they'll change or change ingredients of a drug. With the insulin, they change the delivery method of the drug, the syringe, and that way they can file a new patent and they can make that formula inaccessible to any other company to make generically until the patent expires. And many of these drug manufacturers have been doing this for decades, and that's called the evergreen strategy. And here we have a very interesting website. This is UC Hastings Law, University of Connecticut. That's University of California Hastings Law. Uh, and here they have a link somewhere in here to this database they created. Um, there's one, like, for example, insulin. They do that a lot with insulin. They take the they'll make it so that the syringe is slightly different. Then we have a patent on that product that prevents any other company from making that anything close enough to that product to be sued under patent law. Because if a company makes something with a similar formula, it doesn't have to be exact, then the original drug manufacturer can sue that company and file an injunction and have them stop doing that, making that product, or I'm sure the government might fine them as well. So there is nothing I've seen so far in this summary, okay, nothing at all that attacks that problem. That's one of the biggest problems, okay. What's this FDA? I'm interested to see. I looked at this earlier. It says prevents this provision limits the potential for evergreening by restricting manufacturers from obtaining new exclusivities. See, that's the FDA approval, but it doesn't do anything to these. This is under FDA. So that doesn't change the patent law, which allows them to do that. So I'm not sure how uh, you know consequential changing some FDA rules are when the problem is the patent law. And I'm sure also this would never make it through the bill because obviously this bill is going to be amended, it's going to be chopped up and spit back out, and it's going to look nothing like this, like this summary shows. So, you know, this is the thing is it would be great if they passed a bill like this, okay? It would be great. It's not going to happen, okay? So, it's probably the most politically uh consequential thing a politician can do is sign a bill that lowers drug prices, so the fucking boomers are going to vote for him, hands down, okay? They're going to vote for him, okay? And they're like a very important demographic. Probably the most important demographic is going to be your fucking cable TV boomers, okay? So it would be such a political win for a politician, don't you understand? All right. So there must be a lot of pressure coming the other way from the industries and probably from within the bureaucracies themselves because we have a lot of, intertwining between the government bureaucracies and the industries they supposedly regulate these days, especially with Food and Drug Administration. I'm sure there would be people resistant to some of these Food and Drug Administration rules. I'm sure there would be many powerful unelected bureaucrats that would have a problem with each of these rules. Okay, so what's this say? The provision provides for increased education of biosimilars. So that again, more government expansion here. Like a lot of this is just government expansion, GAO, another GAO study. Okay, the GAO, that means the GAO would have to hire people from the outside. I mean, they have a the GAO has a good reputation. It's one of the few agencies that has a very good reputation. They're just number crunchers and data analyzers, and they're good. All right, but then they would probably have to hire a contractor of some sort. Well, that would probably end up being a contractor that is friends with some politicians or some bureaucrats. Okay, establishes pharmacy quality measures. You got more. This is mostly government expansion. And as we know about government expansion and creating more regulations, it rarely fixes any problems. It may fix problems a little bit, but then create more problems. Okay, that makes them. So this one is the provision codifies recent regulations from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to require pharmaceutical companies to list prices of their prescription drugs in direct to consumer advertisements. I'm wondering if direct to consumer means television advertisements. I don't know. Maybe that's not the definition of direct to consumer advertisements. So that's interesting. It'll be like tiny, tiny, tiny letters that none of these people who most of them already have bad vision, they're not going to see that. Here we go. This provision creates a chief pharmaceutical negotiator at the offices of the United States Trade Representative. So let's create a new office. I guess this guy's going to be negotiating drug prices from Medicare and Medicaid for Medicare and Medicaid. Okay, he's going to be that office is going to be corrupt as shit. Okay, so look, I'm not saying it's a bad bill. It looks like there's some stuff in here that is okay. It's good. How much of this would get through to a final bill, and even the final bill, will it get signed? This bill's not going to make it through Congress. It'll probably be the Republicans will gladly vote against it. The Democrats, if the Democrat, what'll happen is you'll have. As a matter of fact, they already have this. This is the good part. So let's find it. They were three conservative Democrats. Uh, Drug price bill. I are aimed at three endangering plan. So here you go. Like, is this recent? September 15th, recent enough. Here we go. This is what they do. Call them now. Ire aimed at three Democrats endangering plan to lower drug prices. So there are three conservative Democrats that are probably in more conservative districts. They're going to take the fall. I'm sure half of the Democrats don't want to vote for this plan, but they can just count on the Republicans to vote against it, and then they just have to find a few Democrats within the caucus that will vote against it. That way, everybody else can vote yes, okay, and the bill doesn't get through. So the Democrat representatives that voted yes get their voting record with that stamp of we are against the big pharmaceutical companies. Those three Democrats, I'm sure they're going to get some concessions. This is how it works. They take these bills, they say, well, we don't want to endanger our sponsors or our fundraisers with this bill, but it won't be politically palatable for me in my district to vote against this bill, to vote no on this bill. So let's find three Democrats in conservative districts, okay, hopefully, and then God bless the Republicans. They'll vote against it, so they can take the fall there. They're happy to do so, you know. And now three Democrats are going to have to take the fall. We'll find some Democrats that are in, swing districts. okay, or in more conservative districts, and we'll use them as our fall guys. This is what they do. So it's all chicanery. It's all everything is just a fucking show. And I actually I'm past being frustrated with people for still buying into this. I mean, I basically bought into a lot of this up until 2015, 2016. I mean, I would say no. I really started waking up more like 2010, 2011. Okay, now I was always woke on war shit, like understanding that the media lies about war and the government lies about war. So that goes all the way back. But as far as just being generally understanding how everything is such a show and so full of shit, I would say 2010 it was Edward Snowden that really one event that really did it to me. How Ed how they went after Edward Snowden after all that talk of protecting whistleblowers. They were like, let's Obama's like, I'm gonna sign a whistleblower law and we need to protect whistleblowers that are exposing government corruption. Well, here comes Edward Snowden. It didn't seem like they protected him too much. And then, you know, it went from there. And that's so I kind of left because I was more of a liberal then, and I left them completely and fought and was a supporter of Ron Paul, and I've been a supporter of Ron Paul ever since. Rand, not so much. He's okay. To me, he's okay, but he's a little bit too much of a Republican for me to really support because I can never support a Republican. Just like Tulsi Gabbard, she's okay. I like her a lot. I mean, I'm sure I have a crush on her, whether I want to admit it or not. But she's still very much. I liked her a lot. She would be the only Democrat I could support. Rand Paul, I don't know. He's maybe, but he's a little bit too much of a Republican. So he's on the border there with me. He's on the fringe with me. But so yeah, so this is the bullshit, and people unfortunately fall for it and they get stressed out about it. People actually think, a lot of people actually think right now that, oh my god, the government's going to default in 10 days, and government's going to shut down, and I'm not going to get my social security check, and whatever else the federal government does for me, I'm not going to get it, and I'm going to die. Okay, and that's people really believe that, and I'm sure a lot of people really believe this. I don't know, maybe 30% of the population, 40% of the population are worried about this because they haven't figured it out yet how much everything is just an absolute show. So much of everything we see in the media and in politics is just complete theater, and it's fucking mind control at the end of the day. It's psychological warfare. Psychological warfare exists. They do psychological operations in the United States. They've been caught doing it, they being government agencies. We're talking the Air Force got caught making fake social media accounts and doing propaganda. CrowdStrike, which is an FBI contractor, got caught. Okay, so they've been caught doing psychological operations. There was that incident in Canada with the Canadian military doing some weird psyops up there in Newfoundland or something. So it's all just mind manipulation, and people aren't going to get it until the whole house of cards comes crashing down. People tend to want to keep the status quo going, whatever it is, whether it's their own internal status quo or the status quo in their life. They tend to want to keep that going. It's the path of least resistance until it's not possible to keep it going. And so that's kind of what's happening here is the house of cards is on the verge of falling down, and nobody seems to care. No one wants to admit it, and they won't figure it out until it's pretty much too late. But so that's it. That's my little spiel for today.